Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar dedicated to the VAT changes that will be implemented in France from the 1st of January 2022. Thank you so much for coming in such numbers. We have around 290 signed up so far, and it clearly seems that this topic is of great interest for your businesses. The title of our webinar today is Brexit Turmoils Revived. And to be honest with you, when Arthur proposed to call this webinar like this, I had to check in the dictionary about the word turmoil. And I found some very interesting synonyms. These synonyms are disorder, trouble, disturbance, confusion. So turmoil seems to be very well adapted to what you've been facing as UK companies with Brexit. But anyway, we are very honored to have two special guests today. For those who wouldn't know them already, I would like to introduce you to Mrs. Daisy Knox from the Department of International Trade. And I would like to welcome you to introduce you to Irene from the same department. Both of them are based in the British Embassy in Paris, and they are helping UK companies to access the EU market. Mr. Arthus Gallier also kindly accepted our invitation. Arthus is the North of France region representative to the UK, and he will tell you about his missions for UK exporters. The presentation will be covered by myself and by my colleague Arthur, our in-house Mr. Brexit, as we like to call him. And as you can imagine, this guy has been quite busy over the last month. Arthur, would you like to add something about the webinar and the Q&A session?
Yes. Thank you, Michael. I would like to thank you, of course, from my heart again for joining this webinar. It's lovely to see so many people. I would like just from a practical point of view, may I ask everybody to write their questions in the Q&A button or window if you'd like, instead of using the chat. It would be easier for us to follow up all the questions, and even if we wouldn't be able to answer them all at the end of this session, we'll be happy then to answer them by email as well. So please do use the Q&A session or button to answer to ask all your questions, and we'll be happy to answer them. Now, maybe just I would like to give the word first to Daisy now, who would be giving an overall introduction to this webinar. Daisy, the stage is yours, and we're all listening.
Okay, can I just check you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, brilliant. So first of all, thank you, Michael, for the introduction, and thank you both for pulling this really important webinar together. Thank you to all of the businesses on the line today. This is an extremely important topic. And in a series of events like this, I think it's really crucial that we continue to communicate about and learn about these changes to our trading relationship. And why do I think this is so important? Well, we're almost 1 year into trading under the Trading Cooperation Agreement. I think, let me check the date. Yeah, 8 days out, so nearly 1 year in, with all of its new customs requirements, all of its new procedures to be followed by companies trading goods between our two countries, so the UK and France. And 1 year in, we've seen that traffic at the short straits is back to normal levels. Compliance with the new rules is very high. However, we know that traders are still trying to adapt. We have seen that confidence over the past year in exporting to the EU is growing. And I think that's because not only are businesses, gradually adapting to the rules, but they've also had the opportunity to undertake more training. But there are, of course, still changes to come for traders in both directions. Now, France is the UK's 5th largest trading partner, and total trade between our two countries over just the last year alone was worth £64.1 billion. Thousands of goods cross the channel every day. And, even in this year of unprecedented disruption, which was exacerbated by the global pandemic, but also what has been quite a bumpy year for our political relationship, the Franco-British bilateral commercial relationship has held very strong. And, you know, businesses like yourselves make up the backbone of that relationship. So the importance of the flow of goods between our two countries being quite so huge, it's in absolutely everybody's interest that, you know, that movement of goods remains fluid. Now, while European customs procedures and requirements came into effect, at the beginning of this year, following the UK's effective exit from the EU, there are still changes to be aware of that will affect UK exporters to the EU over the coming months. Now, before we get to those, because I am a government representative, I do want to take a quick minute to remind you all of the process of full controls that will be introduced for imports from the EU into Great Britain from January 2022, with, as announced yesterday, the exception of goods from Ireland. So for those of you that export to Great Britain or import EU goods into Great Britain, this will be of direct relevance. But as I mentioned at the beginning, I think general awareness is always beneficial. So just a few sort of bullet points. From January 2022, please remember that, of course, full customs declarations and controls will be introduced. This means that you can no longer delay declarations, although safety and security declarations are now not required until July. Secondly, please remember that hauliers delivering goods from the EU into GB will need to pre-declare consignments via what's called GVMS, or the Goods Vehicle Movement Service. And finally, products of plant and animal origin will need to be pre-notified in IPAFs. Although they won't all need full EHCs until July. And from July onwards, there'll be a progressive approach according to the type of product. So it goes July, September, November. Again, these changes do not yet apply to goods from the island of Ireland, but that's a temporary arrangement that will be reviewed in the new year. I'm sure you have heard this all before, and you're probably well acquainted with these changes, but I think it's still always important to reiterate them. And other than these, there are, of course, some perhaps less known, but absolutely not less important changes to trade in the other direction also starting next year that sometimes get swept aside in these, you know, big sort of big campaigns to advertise these huge customs control changes. I think sometimes the smaller changes can get swept in this. And obviously one such change is this change to the French VAT regime from January 2022, which will affect businesses exporting goods from Great Britain to France. Now, part of our role as VAT is to try to help you understand these changes to our trading relationship. And we've been supporting businesses both sides of the channel throughout the past couple of years, delivering technical support, guidance, webinars such as these, to ensure that British exporters can trade confidently, but also compliantly. And I work for the Export Support Service, which is a new government hotline and online service that's a sort of one-stop shop for government information to help those businesses that are trying to access the European market. And this service fits into DIT teams across Europe that can provide regional expertise for market-specific issues. And I'm joined today, as Michael mentioned, by my colleagues Irini and Adrienne on the line, who are part of the Department for International Trade in France. And these regional teams, beyond market access, also cover, you know, trade policy, export promotion, and investment support. So as a whole, we can provide more end-to-end support in exporting your goods to Europe. However, there are, of course, some things we cannot do, such as provide in-depth advice on the French VAT regime, which is why we collaborate with trusted partners such as RMB Boulanger, so that they can support you with their own wealth of expertise in these areas. In today's webinar, Arthur, sorry, I get Arthus and Arthur mixed up, but Arthur will, of course, talk through the relevance and importance of these changes to the VAT regimes, you know, what actions you'll need to take to continue to comply with VAT rules in France and to trade as easily as possible. Beyond this very crucial topic, there are others that we'd hope to partner with RMB Boulanger on in the new year in a variety of different policy areas where we found that the companies have been experiencing issues and would like more information. In the meanwhile, of course, us in DIT France and the Export Support Service are fully at your disposal for any questions you have. And I've left the personal email addresses of my colleagues Irini and Adrian on the slide, and only not my own because I will be moving on from this position in the new year. But thank you all, and I'll hand back over because I'm also keen to learn everything there is to learn today. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you, Daisy. Thank you, Daisy. What a very clear and message from you. I think in a recap we can understand here that well, first of all, there are of course a lot of economic activities between the two countries, so it's very relevant for the British exporters to know what's happening on the other way of the channel. I think it's also the most important thing when I remember from your from what you've told is that obviously your department will continue to support and to help as much as you can to direct them, well, the British companies, the exporters, to the right direction, and to support them in their improving their processes towards their export activities towards Europe. So thank you again, Daisy, and I think I can speak on behalf of everybody. Thank you for all the support that you have been giving to all of us. The next speaker I would like to announce is Artus. We are related in almost related in name, but not related at all. But I still consider him as a very nice person and a friend of mine. Artus, the stage is yours. Tell us more about the northern region in France and how the northern region can support British exporters as well.
Thank you very much, Arthur. So as Arthur said, I am Arthur Scalier, the Eau-de-France representative to the UK and director for the UK and Ireland at Nord France Invest, which is the investment promotion agency for the Eau-de-France region. So the Eau-de-France region is the one indicated on this map. It's basically the region running from the north of Paris all the way up to Calais and Dunkirk. And basically my role is really to preserve and develop economic and business links between the UK and our region on the back of Brexit-related constraints to make sure that trade continues and to propose to UK companies to make the Eau-de-France region their ideal gateway to Europe. As most of you will understand, and that's also why you're taking part in this webinar, as in many other webinars. So there's been a number of new constraints to trade coming into force since the 1st of January. Obviously the controls have been re-established from the UK to the EU, but companies are gradually discovering that controls are being re-established from the EU to the UK from the 1st of January all the way until July, when controls will be fully phased in, and a variety of other constraints are gradually being put into place. For example, rules of origin. So far, authorities have been accepting the self-certification by companies to prove that that goods were either made in the UK or made in the EU. But from the 1st of January onwards, they will have to prove it themselves. VAT issues, obviously, and that's the reason why you're taking part in this webinar, but also border issues related to product marking, whether UKCA or CE. So here, our job really is to analyze all these different constraints and help you as UK companies trading with European clients and European markets, help you find not just the right information, but the right contacts and the right people to help you preserve these clients and reorganize your supply chain where that's necessary, including, if that's relevant, by investing in creating a company in the Eau-de-France region. So the main advantages about these regions are set out on this slide. I mean, the key one really is proximity. If you take a 300-kilometer radius around Lille, the regional capital, you have 300 million people with annual, you have 78 million people, obviously, with annual purchasing power of 1.5 trillion euros. So in terms of proximity of markets and clients, that's really absolutely key. Efficiency is another important aspect, with really dense and multimodal transport networks, which we pride ourselves upon, and obviously a very well adapted network of services to professionals, and that obviously includes VAT services such as the ones provided by RM Boulanger. And resilience is another important strength of our region, with a strong diversity, not just of sectors, but also of skills and talent. And we all know that talent is always a really crucial issue for UK companies to be able to manage their business. Next slide, please. So you will recognize most of the names on the right-hand side of this slide, which are companies which operate in our region and which show really the strength of our logistics network, not just in terms of roads with the highest or the densest network in France, and 12 highways which link up not just Paris with Lille, but also to Brussels and border European capitals. In terms of railways as well, we have about 10% of the French railway network, and a booming rail freight sector with companies such as Cargo Beamer. And the advantage here is that basically containers can arrive at Calais port, for example, be transferred directly from port ecosystem to trains, and then sent all the way down to Milano in Italy, or to Perpignan in the south of France, to access Spanish markets after all. And all that is much more environmentally friendly, obviously, because that doesn't involve using roads. Ports, obviously, with the Port of Calais and its strong connection to Dover, the Port of Boulogne with its very strong fish market and the first fish transformation industry in Europe, the Port of Dunkirk, obviously, with its strong international connections, and most recently, direct ferry line to Ireland, and the Eurotunnel, which allows you to cross the channel in just 35 minutes. And finally, obviously, the waterways sector. So I say obviously, but to many companies that may not be that obvious. At least it's not as obvious as in countries such as Belgium, the Netherlands, or in Germany, but it's really a sector that we're looking to develop in this region, especially with the construction of the Canal Seine-Nord Europe, which is basically a canal going from the Seine Valley all the way to the Escaut River in Belgium. And that will massively increase our interconnectivity with the waterways network across Europe. That's it for me, and I'll be very happy to answer your questions either in this webinar or later on. Feel free to get in touch. Thank you very much. Up to you, Arthur.
Thank you. I think with this, it becomes clear that the northern region is not just some random region here in France. It's basically the best region that the British neighbors could ever have, with all the talent and all the potential that is here. It's just a matter of discovering it and exploring it and making the best out of it. I'm sure you will be able to help our British friends if they need some guidance around who to contact or what companies would fit in their scenario. Thank you very much, Artis, for this. Michael, would you care to introduce a bit more our own company and to see to guide the people and to explain them better what we do? Go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you, Arthur. Well, our company is RMB. That stands for RM Boulanger, and our company was established in 1981, and we are VAT service providers to around 900 customers that are based in 55 different countries. We employ 30 people, and we have reported 2.8 billion euros to the various EU national tax authorities this year. Just to tell you that a lot of companies are happy to use fiscal representation in order to sell their products in the EU. Next slide, please, Arthur. So what do? We provide VAT registration and compliance services in all the EU member states, and obviously, since Brexit happened, we deployed some dedicated services to UK exporters who absolutely needed to be able to keep on operating in the EU. We also provide the same services the other way around. So we register companies that are based in the EU for VAT in the UK. We also provide overall VAT consultancy, VAT corrections, VAT analysis. And for some UK companies that sell products who need to be EC marked, we can also act as their economic operator. As you may know, that you as British businesses, you will need to appoint a legal representative, also called the economic operator, in France, in order to deal with your EC marking documentation. So in a nutshell, we assist companies to trade within the EU as if Brexit never happened. Next slide, please, Arthur. We have identified 5 main bottlenecks that arise from Brexit, and since 1st of January 2020, these bottlenecks have been more than confirmed. The first of them is definitely the complexity of the customs processes. You, as a British company, need to go through customs import declarations. You also need to deal with veterinary and sanitary inspections if your goods are namely of animal origin. Your companies have been facing huge pressure on your supply chains, on delivery times, and Brexit also created a lot of administrative burden for your company. The 5th bottleneck is about taxes, and especially about VAT, because what we quickly understood after the 1st of January 2020 is that UK companies were not sufficiently aware about their fiscal liabilities. They were focusing on their import obligations, but not on their tax obligations. And VAT is definitely an issue that needs to be managed very carefully. In case your companies are not complying from a VAT perspective, this could lead to sanctions and VAT and interest that may be inflicted by the EU tax administration. So our mission today is to inform you that we can be of help, taking care of your VAT declarations, but also to guide you through the best routes in order to have your goods shipped to the right country in the EU and being at the same time compliant from a VAT perspective. Next slide, Arthur. So the reality from a fiscal point of view since the 1st of January 2021, your companies are not allowed anymore to use the harmonized EU regulations because there are now 2 customs, customs on export and customs on import in the EU. You may be facing customs duties if your products are not of UK origin, customs origin. And your products definitely attract import VAT. That means that import VAT needs to be paid or at least reverse charge. And you will see that this is precisely the main topic we will be talking today, because the big changes are about this import VAT. And most of your EU clients probably require to be supplied on a DDP basis, as they are not keen to be involved in the import customs process. They may be happy that you take care of the export and of the import declarations in the EU. So we can help you to map your flows and help you to ship DDP in the EU as if Brexit did not happen. Next slide. So what are these new VAT rules? From the 1st of January 2022, the import VAT deferment will become mandatory. This import VAT deferment is also called auto liquidation by some of our UK clients, and this means that VAT will not be payable anymore to your customs brokers. Import VAT will need to be exempted at the time of customs clearance. And the consequence of this decision is that a French VAT registration will be required for all companies importing goods into France from the 1st of January 2022. This is what our webinar is about. It's probably, more than probably, a massive change for your businesses if you're not already VAT registered into France, because from this date, if your company has no French VAT number, you will not be allowed to import any goods in France or through France. So this is a big decision. And next slide, please, Arthur. We will tell you a bit more about this in a minute. So as a result, the VAT on import is no longer payable to your French customs broker. And you will not be allowed to sell DDP to your French clients if your company has not a valid French VAT number. As a result, VAT refund claims through the so-called 13th directive will not be possible anymore either. So that will be a big change, especially for customs brokers in France who were used to charge you with the import VAT. This VAT was claimable through this refund process called the 13th directive. This will not be possible anymore from the 1st of January. Next slide, Arthur. So this may seem to be a very positive measure for your company because you will not be paying any import VAT anymore. But the downside of this measure is that a VAT registration in France will be required, and this process takes up to 3 months. So this is what we call a blessing in disguise, because if your company has the possibility to wait this 3 months period and be registered for VAT, then your company will benefit from this wonderful system called the Import VAT Deferment, because no import VAT will not be pre-financed ever again. So it will be a very positive consequence on your cash flow. You will no longer be stuck in time-consuming procedures to get your VAT back on your imports. And one VAT number can be used to deliver DDP anywhere in France or in the EU. So the benefits of being registered for VAT are very important. However, the downside of it is the VAT registration process that takes from a couple of months. Next slide, Arthur. So what can RMB do for you so that your imports are not blocked, because that will probably be the effect of these new measures from the 1st of January. If your VAT is under process, or if your company would not have started to register for VAT, then we will still be able to share our global VAT number with you, so that your imports of goods followed by shipments into the EU, but not in France, will still be available under the regime 4200 through our own global VAT number. But this solution will only be possible to sales that will happen in all EU member states, but not France. So the real downside of this measure is that your companies will not be able to import and sell goods into France if your companies are not registered for VAT. Next slide, Arthur. So the first thing to do in order to be able to keep on selling DDP after the 1st of January is still to obtain an EU ERE number. This number is a customs identification number, and this number will enable your company to import goods from a customs perspective. So nothing to see with VAT. But this number is still required after the 1st of January 2022. It's not very complicated to get this number. It takes about 24 hours. The second thing will be to appoint a tax agent who will register your company for VAT, so that you will be able to use the postponed VAT accounting. You will still be required to appoint a customs broker in the UK, and the mission of your customs broker will be to take care of the export formalities from the UK. You will need to appoint a customs broker in France so that your goods can be cleared in your name, and their responsibility will be to report your import formalities to the French customs. And if you meet these 4 conditions, if you respect these 4 steps, you will still be able to operate in the EU after the 1st of January 2022. We would like to remind you that France still remains a very attractive import country, and especially when this measure will be into place, because you will still benefit from a very interesting mutual tax reciprocity agreement between France and the UK. From a VAT perspective, UK companies are still considered as EU-based companies. That means that being a British company means that there will be no requirement to set up a bank guarantee with the French tax authorities, as it is the case, namely in the Netherlands, for example. So this, of course, makes VAT compliance costs lower. And we haven't talked about the other very attractive things about France, and namely the fact that France is the closest country from the UK, that Calais is in France, just 40 kilometers from Dover. And France is probably a very interesting country, and this country could be considered as your unique country of import, because this is our strategy, to propose France being your unique country of import, so that you can avoid the issues that some of them may have been facing using the T1s agreements and have your goods cleared in each country of destination. So our strategy would be to have your goods all customs clears into France and subsequently sold to France and to the other EU member states. Arthur would like to say a word about it?
Yeah, well, I think the recap of it is that, as you said, this is an important change, and it can go both ways. Either this is a very good thing for British companies, but you need to be prepared and you need to know what it's all about, because if you don't, I think it can also have a boomerang effect in the sense that all of a sudden the 1st of January or the 2nd, companies that are importing into France right now without a VAT number will discover that they can't do that anymore. So really, really important for all those companies to understand that this is really something that is relevant for everybody. We have prepared a couple of cases, Michael, and because I'm always in the trenches on the ground, fighting this tremendous effort to keep the 2 countries linked to each other. We have identified basically 3 cases where, or 3 types of situations that could be relevant for you guys, either multiple situations or just one. So we would like to run through the scenarios and the cases. For example, let's start with the first one. It's maybe the most straightforward one. It's when your company is selling to French businesses only. And I think this change is one of the most, well, this is the scenario when it's one of the most relevant of this change. So as said before, you don't have any other choice anymore but to register for VAT and then again benefit from the full import VAT deferment on all imports. That's a great thing. But you can't import, pay the VAT, and then claim it back through the 13 directive anymore. The wonderful thing is obviously the cash flow effect, so that your import VAT is exempted on all goods, regardless of where they're coming from. And because of the fact that you have a French VAT number, that could, of course, open gates to the future if you would decide to then sell onwards to other clients, to Germany, to Belgium, for example. You can then use France as a gateway into the future where your company would be growing on the European market. I think the process here is quite straightforward as well. You need to appoint a customs broker, obviously in France, who will receive and clear the goods in France. A tax agent, we would recommend ourselves, obviously, to manage your VAT obligations in France. Mention your own VAT number on all your sales invoices, because in that sense you are basically selling from France. That's the whole purpose, I think, of DDP, is that when you clear goods on your name in France, it means that you're still the owner of the goods in France. And so the sale is only happening after the clearance, after the import of the goods. So it's important to understand that in this case, you are selling as if you would be a French company without being a French company, still remaining a British company, and well, still being liable to taxes and all other obligations in the UK, and only having the VAT filing obligation in France for the operations that are relevant for French territory. And then we, of course, would take off the mission of filing your operations into the VAT return in France, obviously, and well, make sure that you're compliant with the local French rules. So again, maybe a good thing to light up here is that this French VAT number can serve you in the future for the growth of the rest of the European continent, so that you can sell from France onward to other countries. But as said before, there is a waiting time of around 2 to 3 months. We expect not to get that any better in the upcoming weeks and months, because of the fact that we expect a lot of requests for French VAT numbers. So I would really recommend for people that are in this situation to consider registering yourself for VAT in France to facilitate your transactions to France. We have then a second case. Unless if you want to add something, Michael, on this first case.
I think it was a brilliant explanation, Arthur.
Thank you. That's good. The second case would be, upscaling a little bit more. We have then a situation where a British company sells to both French clients, meaning B2B clients, and EU-based clients as well, meaning, for example, German or Italian or Bulgarian or Latvian, doesn't matter, throughout the whole of the European Union. In this case, we would have a kind of a hybrid dual solution. Obviously, you will still need the registration for VAT into France if you want to sell DDP to your French clients. So, in equivalent of the previous case, that remains the same. But here we can help you already as acting your limited tax representative for your flows that would go to other European countries, to other EU countries, by using a specific import regime, which is the regime 4200. Our company is then acting as a limited tax representative, meaning we are basically renting our global VAT number to you guys so that you can import and clear your goods in France, but the goods are not destined for France. You don't pay any VAT on that part either. The goods then leave France immediately, because that's the whole point of this specific regime, importing into a certain European member, not meant as the final destination, but meant for another country within the European Union. And so the goods leave immediately from France to their final destination. That could cover up for a part the waiting time and the registration time that you guys will be needing to receive the French VAT number, so that you at least have a solution for a part of the flows, namely for your other European clients. The benefits here obviously are more or less the same. Again, you don't pay any VAT on import, neither on the hybrid solution, temporary solution of regime 42 using our services, and then afterwards receiving your VAT registration in France anyway. And again, postponed VAT accounting, as you call it in the UK, which is basically the equivalent here, but we call it autoliquidation de la TVA à l'importation. Sounds very poetical, but means basically the same thing. And your company still has then, in the end of the story, their own French VAT number, which is also a way to provide stability so that your company is accountable and responsible for their own flows. It's your VAT number, and nobody has anything to say about that. The process is very similar in the case that you still need a customs broker in France. You still need to have a tax agent. On top of it, by using this hybrid temporary solution, you still need our global VAT number. And so we act in a dual way. From one side, as a limited tax representative, which is a very specific term to say that, well, you're using our global VAT number for this specific import regime, and otherwise as your VAT agent to help you to manage your compliance work once you receive your VAT number. And in this case, we will also manage your Intrastat returns from France to other countries, because you would then have easy movement of goods. I think most of you are very familiar with that, because this is what you always did also before Brexit. And then we have the third case, and this is the other, the other opposite of the scenarios. Imagine we probably have businesses on this call that do not ship to France, not at all. They ship to Germany, they ship to Poland, for example. And France is just a tunnel country, because it's efficient, because it's close, because they have their logistic part already in place, and everything is in place to work efficiently through France. And France is just a tunnel country. Well, then you would have basically the choice of using both of the solutions provided previously. But I think very often companies then choose to operate, for example, through Regime 42. Obviously the biggest advantage of Regime 42 is that it can be used immediately once the contract is signed and we represent you officially towards the French tax authorities. You can start using our global VAT number, and we will guide you what concerns the document and the legal statements and all that. So, there is not really a waiting time or whatsoever. Again, there is no VAT to pay upfront. You are, again, having this cash flow benefit, but you don't require a VAT registration either in that case, because you continue using our global VAT number. So you don't even have obligations, filing obligations. Well, how to say it? You still have them, but we are doing that on your behalf because it's our number and not yours. And your goods are shipped from the UK to all other European countries. They are still cleared in France. Nobody of your clients is involved in the customs process. It is as if they would receive their goods from France as another easy movement of goods, just as their other European suppliers would do. The process here is, again, quite straightforward. Again, you always need a customs broker in France, otherwise you can't clear the goods. So goods are cleared in your name. You are the importer of records, even though you are using our global VAT number, and your goods are then transported immediately to your customers. You mentioned, obviously, our VAT number and the fact that we are your representative on all your documents and invoices. And again, we make sure that you are compliant from a French and European tax perspective, that VAT and Intrastat is filed. Just a big highlight here is that this method can only be used for shipments going out of France. This cannot be used for shipments to France or private individuals or whatsoever. This is really specifically B2B flows using France as a tunnel country and going forward directly to other European countries and clients. I hope this made sense. This was clear, Michael. I'm not sure if maybe I forgot something.
I don't think so, Arthur. I think it was very clear. We appreciate this topic is very complex, and it probably will probably bring some more questions from you. Our mission is to try to find the right solutions for your companies and make you able to keep on operating in the EU. We have around 50 questions, Arthur, on the chat, which is good. Seems that this topic is very popular, and it brings a lot of questions. A question that was raised a couple of times is and I will ask it to you, Arthur, just to make sure that you understand the whole process. If my company is selling on a DAP basis in the EU, will I be concerned by these new measures?
Well, a very interesting question, and the answer is no. Well, provided that the documentation is correct and that it's really DAP, I'm sorry. What is DAP? DAP means that you are, as a British exporter, you are delivering the goods up to the border, basically to the French border or whatever your destination is and wherever your client is, and that the client is taking care of the import formalities. Now, I assume, unless your client would be another British company, I assume that your client would be then a French company, for example. If your client is a French company, they obviously probably have a French VAT number. And so these rules automatically then apply to all companies that already have a French registration number in France. Basically, the only thing would be is that even though your French client didn't set up the postponed VAT accounting, as we call it, or the VAT Deferment account, or whatever you want to call it in France before, now, whether he wants it or not, he will not have any other choice, and he will not pay any VAT on import, because that will be the only way to go forward. And so in this case, you will not be, well, concerned by these changes. Obviously, you will be if your client will say, on one bright day, the sun is shining and he has a wonderful idea, namely that his supplier would provide from then onwards on DDP basis. That would then change everything, and you would be obligated to register for VAT in France, if that makes sense.
Another question is about the possibility to use the VAT number of the client at destination. Let's assume that a UK exporter would sell goods to a French-based company. This French-based company would be registered for VAT. Will there be a possibility to use their French VAT number?
I'm sorry, Michael, you broke up a bit. Could you please repeat? I'm sorry.
Yes, another question is to know whether it would be possible to use the French VAT number of the end client in France.
Well, that could be, of course, a possibility. But then again, it's a matter of making the right agreements between yourself and your client. The client needs to know that that this is what you will do or want to do, because he will then also need to file all these operations. The import VAT must be then reverse charged in his VAT filing, and this is not always well managed or well known by the French companies either, because not every French company has a lot of experience with importing and clearing goods, although in their own country. So it's really a matter of good communication, clearly communicating between each other before setting this up. I think the biggest disadvantage of this is that you are basically organizing to send the goods to France, but at the same time you don't have any control on what's happening after the border. So if things go wrong, it's your fault anyway. But at the same time, you don't have any control. And so I find it always a little bit tricky, unless very good agreements have been done prior to the shipment, of course.
Yes, and what I could add about this is that the figures that will be reported in the French VAT declaration will be automatically provided by the French tax authorities based on what the customs broker will be reporting to them. And that may be a very significant issue, as the end client, as they will not be part of the transaction, will not know anything about the value that needs to be declared in this declaration. And the consequence of this is that in case the figures would be wrong, it would be the French client's responsibility to correct the figures, and they could be reassessed because of this liability. So it's I agree with you, Arthur. It's a bit tricky to use the French client's VAT number, even if from a very theoretical perspective this may work. but it may create some discrepancies in your clients' VAT declarations, and they would have no clue to correct the situation, because the customs formalities will still be handled by the customs broker for your account as a UK company. Another question is about Amazon, and that's something I think we have a couple of clients in this case.
A lot of experience, yes.
The goods are exported from the UK, stored in an Amazon warehouse in France. Goods are not sold; they're just moved there for storage. Do these measure affect these transactions, Arthur?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that Amazon, as far as I'm concerned, never ever will handle any imports, formalities or whatsoever. So if you are importing into France to be able to deliver to Amazon premises, and so that would mean that you would clear first on your own name, you will need to have a French VAT number for that. That's clear. It's not because the goods are sitting in the premises of Amazon that they're not yours anymore, or even though if you would sell them to Amazon, even still you need to register for VAT in France, because Amazon would never want to be the importer of records in France or in any other country. So yes, I think it's important to know where you will deliver to Amazon. If you are delivering to Amazon Germany, that's another thing. Maybe then we could talk about regime 42 and delivering them through that kind of methods. But if you're delivering to Amazon in France, in a French warehouse, then yes, you will need to have a French VAT number, clear the goods, and deliver them the goods cleared in their premises, if that makes sense.
It does, Arthur. It does. Another question is about the fact that the presentation will be made available, and there will be a recording. So it's more about the general question.
Of course.
But yeah, okay.
Of course, guys. I think a lot of people couldn't make it to the webinar, so yes, it will be shared so that everybody can catch up. Of course.
Another question for you, Arthur. If my company is the importer, does that mean that we have to charge French VAT on the sale?
Oh, I love these kind of questions. This is why I love my job. No, you don't. There are a lot of other rules and exemptions in France and in other countries as well. One of those is that in France, if you are VAT registered in France, or not even, and you're selling to a French registered business as a non-established business, so for example, let's be realistic. We have a British company that's a non-established business in France, and we have a French registered business that could be either a French company, either, for example, a Belgian company with a French registration, or a British company with a French VAT number, having a warehouse in France, for example. So in that case, this is a local sale. This is a local supply of goods in France, on French territory, but it is exempted from VAT. This is basically an anti-fraud rule, if I'm not mistaken. They have put that in place like 15 years ago, before my time, when I still had hair and probably no brains. And the purpose here is really to make sure that non-French companies, non-established companies, would not collect any French VAT, so that there wouldn't be any misunderstandings, and they couldn't, run off with the VAT collected. So no, you don't have to charge French businesses French VAT if you're yourself, of course, you are a non-established company in France. And many other countries have similar rules, but for example, in the UK, this rule does not exist. In Ireland, it does not exist. In Germany, it does not exist. But similar rules exist, for example, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in Spain, and so on. Here you go.
Another question, and I will take this one. Are there any benefits of importing goods into France to distribute to businesses in Europe and France over the Article 23 license in the Netherlands? This is a very fair question, because the Netherlands also offer the possibility to postpone the import VAT. However, and this is called the Article 23 license. However, as a British company, you will be required to set up a bank guarantee with either your fiscal representative or either with the Dutch customs authorities. And this is the reason why France may be more attractive from this perspective, because France does not require any bank guarantee. There's absolutely no liability from your tax agents or from your company being the importer of records using the new import VAT deferment scheme. So even from a geographical transport perspective, France may be of interest in your particular case. Are we? So it's almost 4 UK time. Do we still have to pick
maybe
one
a couple
question?
of ones? I have an interesting one, Michael.
Yeah.
Maybe to reconfirm to the people that are listening, because I'm guessing our audience is not only you know, primarily industry or something like that. We have also a lot of traders and Amazon sellers, and questions go by as if, you know, what about B2C? Is B2C affected? Correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously it's first we need to know how you are trading, what exactly, you know, how exactly are you selling. But obviously if you have, for example, goods coming into France, sitting in the Amazon warehouse, and then you are selling from your own name to French individuals, yes, you need a VAT number for that in France. This has nothing to do with the whole thing of changes has nothing to do with the previous changes, which was the OSS and the IOSS changes, and this comes on top of it. But this is really a matter of who is the importer. So if you're importing goods in your own name and selling only after clearance, whether to private individuals or French businesses, you need to be registered for VAT in France. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michael.
No, you're absolutely right, Arthur. And we may add that B2C VAT changes may be a perfect topic for a further webinar if some of you would be interested or concerned by these transactions. It's the VAT changes on the B2C industry is probably one of the most significant reforms we've ever seen. And the funny thing is that the European Commission is proud to say that they have simplified the rules about VAT. And what we can tell you about this is that nothing has been simplified. It's much more complex than it was before. So this is probably one of the strongest reform we've ever seen. But that may be a perfect webinar dedicated to this topic.
Yeah. I'm already organizing it in the background. Maybe a last thing, Michael. Well, I don't know if it's a last thing, because there are endlessly more questions, and I do promise you, all of you, to maybe assemble afterwards the top 10 questions, the most interesting ones. I'll put the answers in the email as well, following up email following this webinar, sharing also the recording, and also, you know, answering to all these questions that are recurring to help you on your way. But also don't hesitate to connect with us face to face afterwards. But maybe a couple of technical things. I see people asking, what about these values? Will we have a kind of a C79 document as they know it in the UK, basically an overview of their imports that were reverse charged? And the answer is obviously two countries can never be the same. I know very well your C79 and C88 documents, and that's fine. But in France, they have announced that these amounts that are reverse charged will be injected automatically in your VAT return. And that will happen around the 14th of every month. Now, knowing that the deadline was the 19th, but now will be the 24th, to give you more time. So you have basically 10 days after having this number of your imports reverse charge VAT injected by the 14th of the month for the operations of the previous month in your VAT filing. Only then you will be able to, you know, to complete the rest of your VAT filing and to file it. But be sure that if the amount is not correct and you do not verify it, by the documents that you have, that you have received from your customs broker in France, to attest that that VAT amount was reverse charged, it will still be your responsibility. So make sure, even though the amounts will be automatically injected in your VAT filing every month, at least for the people that already have a VAT number in France and are filing already VAT returns, to check this amount. This will be very important, because if it's wrong, it will be your fault anyway. Right, Michael?
Actually, I would just like to pick up a last question, which is extremely interesting. The question is, do you need a physical warehouse or premises in France to get a French VAT number? And I would say that our mission as a tax agent or a fiscal representative is to provide you with a VAT number in France in order you to avoid being considered as having a permanent establishment. So having a VAT number in France will avoid the obligation to set up a permanent establishment in France. And the very good thing about just being VAT registered is that your company remains taxable for corporate tax purposes in the UK, not in France. And we can tell you that the corporate tax rate in France is slightly different from what you have in the UK. Arthur, I think we haven't been able to answer all these questions.
No, I'm sorry, Michael. I can talk quicker, but I'm afraid nobody will understand me then. So I don't think that's an added value. Again, as promised, I will make sure to have a recap of all your questions and send to everybody registered to our webinar, the top 10 of those, to help you to get the information at some stage, at some level, let's say it like that. But you're always welcome to contact us anytime. We can have a 30-minute face-to-face call. Why not listening to your personal scenarios and seeing whether we can help you out or not. It's always our pleasure to do so. Michael?
Thank you very much, everyone, for being so many to attend this webinar. Please do not hesitate to come back to us for any further questions. If you would like to have face-to-face calls, if you had other questions, we'll be more than happy to help Arthur and I.
Thank you.
Thanks again, and enjoy this Christmas time, and hope we speak to you soon.
Yeah. Best wishes to you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.